22 kilos of cocaine, a corrupt airport insider, and an international sting operation that stretched all the way from the streets of Bogota to the runways of Heathrow. In December 2019, investigators caught a man who was supposed to protect Britain's borders, but instead, he was secretly helping to flood them with drugs. His plan might have worked, if not for a sting that replaced cocaine with blocks of wood and exposed a conspiracy worth millions. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe for more real cases from the UK's criminal underworld. The man at the centre of this case was 47-year-old Junaid Dar, a senior security manager at Heathrow Airport. Dar wasn't just another worker at the airport. He had authority, access, and influence in one of the most heavily protected environments in the country. His uniform and ID badge meant he could go places most people couldn't. And for organised crime groups, that made him the perfect inside man. On the morning of December 14th, 2019, Dar arrived for work 3 hours early. He wasn't there to grab coffee or catch up on paperwork. He was there to meet two couriers, Michael Williams and Jessica Waldron, who were flying in from Colombia. In their luggage was a huge shipment of cocaine, 22 kilograms with a potential street value of around £2 million. But Dar and his criminal associates didn't realise that law enforcement was already one step ahead. Colombian police, working with the National Crime Agency, had intercepted the courier's bags before the flight left Bogota. Inside, they discovered tightly wrapped blocks of cocaine, ready for shipment. Rather than making an open arrest in Colombia, officers quietly swapped out the drugs for identical-looking blocks of wood. It was a move designed to keep the operation alive and expose every person involved once the plane touched down in London. Williams and Waldron boarded their flight as normal. They had no idea they were now carrying nothing but wood. When they landed at Heathrow, Dar was already waiting. Wearing his uniform, he collected an airport vehicle and drove straight to Terminal 2B, where he escorted the couriers into the toilets. Inside, he took possession of their luggage, believing he now had control of the drugs. To anyone watching casually, it looked routine, a security officer helping passengers, but to investigators, it was the moment the trap closed. As Dar tried to leave the terminal with the bags, officers from the National Crime Agency moved in and arrested him. At the same time, border force teams detained Williams and Waldron as they attempted to walk out of the airport. Both later admitted their part and were sentenced in 2022 to 6 years and 8 months each. But this was much bigger than two couriers. Investigators soon uncovered two other key players behind the scenes: Ruford Davis, age 55, and David Farquharson, age 53, both from the West Midlands. They weren't at the airport, but their digital fingerprints told the story. Using encrypted devices, both men sent Waldron identical screenshots containing instructions on how to link up with Dar after landing. They coordinated the couriers' journeys and ensured everything ran smoothly. Without them, the operation would have lacked structure. For the National Crime Agency, the discovery of Dar's involvement was particularly alarming. Airports are designed with layers of security, scanning, customs, border checks, CCTV, but those defences rely on trust. When a corrupt insider like Dar is working for organised crime, every layer of security can be bypassed with a uniform and a keycard. Mark Abbott, an NCA operations manager, later described it as a gross betrayal of trust, pointing out that Dar's role gave him the exact kind of access drug traffickers dream of exploiting. The trial at Kingston Crown Court laid out the full conspiracy. Dar denied everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. He had been caught red-handed, literally driving away with what he believed was millions of pounds worth of cocaine. Williams and Waldron's testimony, the digital messages sent by Davis and Farquharson, and the sting operation in Bogota all combined to show a clear picture of how the smuggling ring worked. On August 4, 2023, Dar was sentenced to 16.5 years in prison. Davis and Farquharson were each jailed for 14.5 years. The sentences reflected not only the crime itself, but the scale of damage that could have been caused if the drugs had reached Britain's streets. To understand the significance, it's worth looking at the wider picture. Cocaine trafficking from South America into Europe is one of the most profitable criminal enterprises in the world. Billions of pounds are made every year, with cartels constantly looking for new ways to outsmart authorities. Commercial flights are a common target, with couriers swallowing pellets, hiding drugs in luggage, or using corrupted insiders to slip shipments past security. Heathrow, as one of the busiest airports in Europe, is always under pressure, and this case proved that even senior staff could be compromised. Dar's involvement also raised uncomfortable questions about insider threats. In theory, his role was to protect passengers and cargo from criminal activity. In reality, he was using his knowledge of security protocols to try to help organised crime. The NCA highlighted how dangerous this could have been. If just one shipment slipped through, the money it generated would have gone straight back to the cartels and gangs, fueling violence, exploitation, and more trafficking. The use of encrypted devices by Davis and Farquharson also showed the professional nature of the operation. These weren't amateurs taking risks for a quick payout. This was a structured conspiracy, with contacts in Colombia, trusted couriers, and a corrupt official on the inside. Every link in the chain was designed to reduce risk and maximize profit. But thanks to international cooperation, every link in the chain was exposed. One detail that stuck with many observers was how close Dar came to success. After taking the bags from the couriers, he was moments away from driving off in his vehicle. If the NCA had moved in just half an hour later, the drugs could have been gone. That timing showed just how carefully the operation had been planned by law enforcement. For Williams and Waldron, the couriers, their role was typical of how ordinary people can be pulled into international trafficking. They weren't kingpins or cartel leaders. They were mules, trusted to carry the load because someone higher up believed they wouldn't attract attention. But when the sting was revealed, they were left with nothing but prison sentences. The impact of the case went far beyond Heathrow. It sent a warning across the UK that organised crime groups will always look for ways to infiltrate secure locations, and that the fight against drugs isn't just about catching dealers on the street. It's about stopping the flow at every level, from the production fields in South America to the corrupt insiders in European airports. The NCA later confirmed that Heathrow Airport itself had fully supported the operation, recognising how damaging it would be if the public lost trust in airport security. For them, rooting out corruption was just as important as catching smugglers. In the end, Dar's plan collapsed because of a single decision: Colombian police searching the courier's luggage before the flight. That one intervention set off a chain of events that exposed an entire network and prevented millions of pounds of cocaine from entering the UK. It showed how international cooperation is essential in tackling organised crime, and how fragile criminal conspiracies can be when just one link in the chain breaks. For Dar, Davis and Farquharson, the sentences marked the end of their operation. But the case left a bigger message. The greatest threat to border security isn't always the smuggler at the gate. Sometimes it's the person already wearing the uniform. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more cases like this, from massive drug busts to hidden weapons hoards, make sure you hit subscribe and check out the next video on screen now.